2017 is underway, and it's the Moto Grand Prix of Japan from the Mobility Resort Motegi. Up in the hills and out in the countryside, it's welcome MotoGP action since 1999 and the home of the Japanese GP since 2004. Crowning champions throughout, and 2025 in one class in particular may well be no different. Hello and welcome back to Track Action live here at Motegi in Japan. Hard to believe that we're at the 17th stop on our calendar, but here we are ready to rock and roll regardless. Moto3 action is coming up with myself, Kiko Giles, and my sparring partner up here in commentary, Elliot York. We had FP1 earlier, but now it's time for practice, where the top 14 riders in the session you're about to see will book their slot in Q2 directly and enter the pole battle, whilst everyone else will have to fight it out for the top 4 spots in Q1 in the hope of joining those already seeded through. Conditions are ideal for racing. It's certainly warmer than in previous years up here in the hills in Japan, but still perfect. Rain perhaps in the air in the surrounding areas, but not yet falling here at the track. The forecast says it should remain dry, so we hope that it does so all the way through the day and indeed the weekend. The fans are already flocking into the Mobility Resort Motegi, and of course they are some of the most passionate that we see all season, coming up with all kinds of gifts and gimmicks for all of our riders out there on track. Gifting himself P1 this morning, Adrian Fernandez took over at the top, but the top 3 covered by less than half a tenth of a second. It was a Spanish 1, 2, 3. The Caras Enrueda completing it. Joel Kelso, the best of the Australians, up there in 4th place, just ahead of David Almanza. Scott Ogden, a very fine top 6 for a rider who is yet to score points here in Japan. Tayo Furusato just outside of the top 10 in 14th place. Fellow Japanese star Ryusei Yamanaka was up in 8th place. And all the way down to the 3rd page of proceedings, Arbi Aditama, the 26th and last rider in FP1 this morning, but that can all change this afternoon. And you join us now live back track side, and we are over pit lane, and in a couple of moments we will be going green for Moto3 Practice here. And a good few signatures on that Japanese flag, El. Don't see yours anywhere, though. Tell you what, though, that air style would suit you, mate. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Kiko. Yes, hello to everyone else watching along as well. I think it'd suit me as well. Maybe that's something to have a look at next year, but we're getting into the meaty part of the weekend now, aren't we, for practice?
It's better than whatever you've got on the top of your fonts right now, I tell you.
I wish there was a camera in the comments box to see what the person to the left of me is wearing on top of his head.
Looks like.
But yes, looking forward to getting stuck into Friday afternoon here at the Mobility Resort Motegi. They weren't chasing this rider in FP1 earlier on today, although he did have a decent session up inside the top 3, Jose Antonio Herrera, but the job for the championship leader will be to get into that top 14, as he has done in every single Grand Prix we've gone at this year. The only rider to do so in 2025, not seen a Q1 session, and after this morning's outing, it doesn't look like he'll be doing that this afternoon either. However, we do have 35 minutes of running coming up, and anything can happen in motorcycle racing, and in Moto3 especially. Maximo Quiles will be a strong contender. He was P10 this morning on his first outing here at Motegi, a circuit that he was really looking forward to getting stuck into. He loves hard, aggressive braking, and that's pretty much what Motegi is all about.
Yeah, he got real stuck into it. He was sideways just about everywhere into the hard braking zone, so keep an eye on that number 28, Max Quiles, as you say, are up inside the top 10 this morning and looking to be inside the top 14 this afternoon. Qualifying perhaps not his forte in Moto3, but he'll be looking to put himself on the front 2 rows of the grid come qualifying tomorrow afternoon, which gets underway at 12:45 local time. We are green then, and we are already rolling down pit lane. You can see Scott Ogden right there on the CIP green power machine ahead of teammate Noah Detfiler, as David Munoz and Guido Pini now get ready to head out on track from the Liquid Moly Dynamo Intact GP squad. But we are following Jose Antonio Rueda. He is the first one out on track and coming all the way down through turns 1 and 2. This session, we are expecting this one to stay dry. We're expecting the whole weekend to stay dry, really. But times are going to be important here. The track temperature's coming all the way up from this morning. It's still very, very warm out there. There's not a lot of cloud cover over the track itself. So getting a lap time bagged early is going to be vital, because we saw at the end of MotoGP, and the track's coming up in temperature. It's getting a bit greasy, a few fallers right at the end. You don't want to be encountering yellow flags on your fast laps, and particularly not if you're leaving it late.
Yeah, for sure. Turn 10 in particular so far on Friday has been a bit of a pinch point for the riders. Didn't see any crashes in Moto3, but in Moto2 and in MotoGP, turn 10 has been a bit of an issue so far. Of course, turn 11, tricky one to get right as well. But yeah, because when we get into the sort of final 15 minutes, is obviously, as you guys will know watching along from home, I'm sure not for the first time, is where we see plenty of the action taking place. But you do want to get at least a banker lap time in, just to put you a little bit more at ease going into the final 15 or so minutes, and that's what Angel Piqueras will be wanting to do after disappointing Lozano, has to be said, even though he was inside that top 5 again. It's not like he's had a disastrous run of results, Piqueras. He was chipping away at the lead until Lozano, but yeah, Rueda's final corner pass on Quiles to claim victory, with Piqueras finishing P5, has meant that the points gap has risen back up to 78 points, and he had a decent session this morning, did Piqueras, which is good to get some confidence inside that helmet. But he needs to start taking points away from Rueda, and it all starts on Friday. Get yourself into that top 14 and then go from there. Gammon. Next. Also had a decent session up inside that top 10 as well.
Important thing to note, and it's not something we've touched on, at the moment, Jose Antonio Rueda is really the only rider who can get that Red Bull KTM Iron machine working. Both the Fender MT Helmets MSI KTMs seem to be working pretty well. If Angel Piqueras does need some help, he could probably bank on counting it. That can't be the same situation, unfortunately, for Jose Antonio Rueda, because Alvaro Carpe has really struggled since we've come back from that summer break and his injury just before we got into the summer break back at Brno. So a little bit of dynamics there. I'm sure here Yusei Yamanaka is not going to give any ground to his teammate Piqueras, because he's obviously racing at home and he's still chasing that first Grand Prix victory. But right on cue, Alvaro Carpe, points at this point would just be a result, because he had a disastrous opening session down in 21st place, I believe he was, and he's really struggled to even get near the leaders in recent rounds.
Yeah, certainly has a bit of a different form, unfortunately, for Carpe. I think the team are just trying to find a different direction, or searching things to try and improve the feeling, have just lost their way a little bit in recent rounds, so trying to return to the sort of base setting that Carpe had at the start of the season and throughout the first half of the year, where he was in fine form, the top rookie in the first half of the year. Of course, now Maximo Quiles has taken over those honours with a pretty stunning, it has to be said, rookie season for Maximo Quiles. But Carpe still 5th in the championship, but it's a good point you raised, Kiko, because Rueda doesn't necessarily need his help as things stand. He's doing all the hard work himself, but I'm pretty sure for Piqueras he'd love for Yamanaka to be inside that podium fight and trying to ruffle the feathers of Rueda on a regular basis. And of course, Yamanaka is now staying with the team next year, so it's not like he's not got any interest in trying to help the team. He's staying with them next year, and what better way to do it than try and help his teammate who's moving up with the team into Moto2 next year, to try and take as many points as possible away from Rueda, because now that's what they've got to do. The points gap, as I said, is not far off 80 points. Rueda is going to have to chuck it down the road a couple of times for Piqueras to pretty much get into a one-race territory in terms of points. So this weekend is vital. Yamanaka, of course, if he's in victory contention, podium contention, he's not going to exactly wave Piqueras by, not suggesting that, but I think where he can and where possible, and obviously within the limits, I imagine the team might be saying at some point, just try and upset Rueda, let's say.
I think that's got to be the plan, and we've seen tactics, particularly from the team on screen right now, Leopard Racing, of course, going back a couple of years, where they do use both their riders to their full potential in terms of team order. So we'll have to wait and see how it all unfolds. I'm of the same opinion of you, that I would be surprised if Jose Antonio Rueda gets himself in such a situation. It would be one heck of a calamity if he's even near that, and that the Fringe MT Helmets MSI squad needs to do any team orders. Having said that, this is motorcycle racing. You said at the top of the show anything is possible, and in Moto3 normally we do get something a little bit dramatic. The longer this championship race of course goes on, the more nervous those who are fighting for it will get, and that includes your championship leader. But at the moment it's a comfortable lead in the overall standings for Jose Antonio Rueda. And really it should be a run of podiums until the end of the year, and if he does that, he's got this title back regardless of what Angel Piqueras is able to do. Adrian Fernandez we are not looking at. It's his teammate David Almanza coming across the line, who goes P1, so the time's already pretty decent. Not quite where we were earlier on though, but Almanza goes top at the moment. This is Adrian Fernandez, just runs off the edge of the curb. It's not painted green, so there's no advantage to be gained there apparently. Fernandez comes across the line and lost a lot of time anyway, so stays in third place. So Yusei Yamanaka goes up inside the top 5, and then just one place ahead of him, it is his fellow countryman Tayo Furusawa, as we get a replay of Adrian Fernandez blowing the apex down at turn 11. That is easily done. It is quite downhill into there. Miss your braking point by a couple of inches and you do pay a big price.
Absolutely, yeah. A hard braking zone down into the 90-degree corners where Marco Bezzecchi crashed, of course, in MotoGP around about a couple of hours ago. So Fernandez just losing time on that lap, but good news so far for the Leopard Honda duo, P1 and P3, as the team look on pensively watching the big screens that are above the paddock here in Motegi. Early days, of course, in this session, but both riders had a good session earlier on as well. P5 for Almanza, of course, and we saw P1 for Fernandez.
We obviously catch a glimpse of Massimo Verdini there down in pit lane. Leopard with a big decision to make. They've already signed Guido Pini. Now, it seems that Adrian Fernandez, we thought it might have all been done and he's not going to be there. It seems like maybe there is an option after all for him to stay. David Almanza, the rider on your screen, does have an optional deal into next year, but that is a performance-related deal. So it's very neck and neck over who gets that second Leopard racing machine. It's Almanza's first year, it is Fernandez's third. A couple of rounds ago it looked like the team were going to wait and see whether or not someone's coming up from Red Bull Rookies or from Junior GP, but it now looks like it's going to be between Almanza and Fernandez. Now that is a real conundrum that they've both got to make, because there's potential with Almanza, but unfortunately for him, Adrian Fernandez has just started coming back to the kind of form he started this season with. It's easy to forget that Fernandez was injured throughout most of our first part of the season, once we got into Europe and had a bit of bad luck through no fault of his own, but Almanza equally. So very, very hard decision that's got to be made, and it's something that we've spoken about, I think, just about every weekend since getting out the seat, and I think Max Keeler is following suit here at turn 8. Yes, he is. Kicks up a bit of dust into the face of Joel Kelso. We'll thank him for that. But back to the Leopard decision. It's a heck of a decision to be making, because there's reasons for both to stay and leave.
Yeah, I spoke to Mirjad Couture straight after the news was announced in Mazzana that Pini would be hopping on to one of the Leopard Hondas for next season, and I think that's a great move for the team and potentially a good move for Pini as well. Of course, KTM have been superior in pretty much every sense of the word in 2025, so maybe a little bit of surprise that Pini and his team fancy a switch to Leopard Honda, but we know Leopard Honda are one of the reference teams in Moto3. There's no real factory teams, let's say, in Moto3, but Leopard Honda, you could pinpoint as one of those, but KTMI, of course, another one. But it is going to be interesting. The tuners changed slightly. You mentioned they were seeing what the rookies were going to do, and we found out that Ariarte, understandably, is going to IO. Rico Salmelo is going to Tech 3, understandably, as well. We believe Ada Fatama might be coming up. He finished top 3 in the Red Bull Rookies Cups. That means he can get promoted despite the age limit. Sounds like he's going to be in Honda Team Asia colours next year, which is also understandable. So there's no real rookies left on the table, or very limited options anyway. And obviously they've signed Pini for one of the seats, and it did sound like it was between Fernandez and Almanza for the second seat, and it would be a case of seeing how the rest of the season plays out, not all the way to the end of the year, of course, because they want to find out who they put in on that seat before then. But that's why the podium for Fernandez and the performance he put in over at Misano was very timely indeed, not just for his self-confidence,
Right on cue,
but also for his future.
That's not going to help at all. That's Adrian Fernandez down. That looks like the last corner to me. Turn 14, victory corner. Well, it's not a victory this time around. Into the chicane. Lost it on the curbs going in and bouncing straight across. He's lucky that no one was ahead of him there. Adrian Fernandez getting away with one, and luckily he's near pit lane. He's gone past the entry point to pit lane though. So I hope that hasn't just scuffled Adrian Fernandez's chances of Q2. Midrav Couture watching on, and yeah, they can't recover that bike, so that's going to have to go the long way back to pit lane. That is a real bit of bad luck. Just as we talked about how important it is to have a clean run right until the end of this year.
Exactly. Podium back at Misano, P1 in FP1. It was all looking good for Adrian Fernandez, but unfortunately a crash early on in practice this afternoon. Now he's P4, so he's got a relative banker time set, but that 156.438, sorry, I don't think will be good enough come the end of the session to get himself in that top 14. So they've got to get that bike back quickly, and it looked a little bit second-hand as well. So Fernandez and the Leopard Honda have to get back relatively quickly and try and get back on track. Bit of drama then to start practice. 10 or so minutes in. This is Rueda being closely followed by Valentin Peroni. The duo have been locked together for quite a few races now. Peroni has been absolutely superb, and Peroni goes P3, Rueda P6 at this moment in time.
Tell you what, David Almanza is on a bit of a decent run here. We've seen this really quite a lot throughout 2025. Almanza in race mode, race trim in practice is very, very strong indeed, and sets a 55.672. That's just about 3/10 quicker than what his teammate Adrian Fernandez was able to do this morning. So David Almanza is his future might well be on the line. I think he's got options anyway, but I think that his ideal scenario would be to remain within that Leopard Racing squad, that is for sure. And the number 22, as we take him through the final corner, thankfully without the dramas that his teammate has suffered, has really come on leaps and bounds, and unfortunately just lacking perhaps that little bit of killer instinct at the end of races once he's got there, because David Almanza, okay, Misano, he wasn't really in contention, he dropped right the way back, and then had that huge save avoiding Luca Lunetta through Cavone during the Grand Prix. But Almanza was right there in Barcelona, had good pace, and unfortunately just got pounced on it. It was a case of, like we were talking about Tyler Furasato as well back in Barcelona, pounce or be pounced on. If you don't pounce, you are a target for someone else, and fortunately for David Almanza, that has been the case a few times this year. He's still chasing that first podium.
Yeah, he viewed Barcelona as a real missed opportunity. He was really strong all weekend long, got his first pole position, of course, and then finished just off the podium in P4, and he was pretty upset, it has to be said, after the Catalan Grand Prix, because he's obviously desperate for that first podium, and that was really a weekend where you've got to say he should have been on the podium with the pace that he was displaying. But he's continued on his way. Had a disappointing Saturday and Sunday in Misano, topped Friday last time out over at the San Marino Grand Prix, and he's going well again. So good stuff so far for Almanza, but early days in this session, of course, he's got Marco Morelli behind him, the Argentine who moves up into the class full-time next year with Aspar alongside Quiles. That's a very good-looking team that Aspar have put together. Surprise, surprise. Yeah. And Marco Morelli was up inside that top 14 earlier on today as well. A really exciting talent on the number 95 and great experience ahead of coming into the class full-time next year, as Kelso moves up into the top 10, just behind returning teammate Matteo Bertelli. Touched upon it this morning, but give another shout out to the number 18. Great to see him back after a real disastrous injury, it has to be said, just after he picked up his debut podium over in Austin.
That's David Munoz, one of his biggest fans.
terrible.
That's about the third time that one's been wheeled out all year, but of course, why not stick to the good material? Well, stick to the material you know at least. Let's not say it's good. David Munoz there in second place. He's in the pits at the moment, of course. At the moment, safety through. Valentin Peroni was down in 11th place this morning. He's managed to come up into P3, so ahead of Furusato, Adrian Fernandez, Jose Antonio Rueda, your championship leader, is second ahead of Yamanaka, Pini, Matteo Bertali in the top 10 already. After not being on one of these bikes for 6 months, that is absolutely remarkable. Ahead of his teammate, Joel Kelso. Piqueras, who we're on board with at the moment, is 11th, ahead of Lunetta, who was your only crasher earlier on this morning. Kilo's down in 13th. He won't be sitting too comfortably at the moment. Then Stefano Neppa, your last one in at the moment. The riders with the highlighted positions on the left-hand side on the timing tower, with the white background of the riders already going through. Yellow flags in sector 3, so I wonder who that is. It looks like it's down at turn 9. Is that perhaps one of... Is that this rider's teammate, I wonder? Or could it be one of the level up MTA machines? Oh, it was Piqueras' teammate, spotted by the coloured dot that has stopped over at turn on the track map there. So Ryusei Yamanaka, now the marshals have gone down. Ryusei Yamanaka, well, he's given the marshals a bit of work to do, and the marshals have taken a tumble as well. Thankfully, marshals and Ryusei A-OK.
It just looked like he was holding his left wrist when he was walking away. Hopefully that's just a bit of a knock to it and not a potential injury, as his fellow Japanese rider Furusato pulls into pit lane and sees himself in P4. Good job done so far. But yeah, Yamanaka then, a crasher down at turn 9.
I hope he was bending over laughing at the marshals, falling over and not in pain, but as you say, was holding that wrist a bit. So drama from Ryusei Yamanaka, just as we were saying, at a home GP, he'll be looking to get into the podium places and chase that first Moto3 Grand Prix victory. Takes a tumble at turn 9. It's quite fast on entry into that. You're coming through the S's, but he looked like he lost that on the exit, so I hope that wasn't a high side. We're on board with Piqueras. He works his way through that section of track. His lap time has been cancelled due to exceeding track limits elsewhere around this 4.8 kilometre Motegi venue. More yellow flags in sector 3, so I wonder who it is this time around. We'll have to wait and see. Is it one of the Leopards? It is indeed, and that is David Almanza, I believe, because the other one is also in the beach. So David Almanza has taken a little trip through the kitty litter and showers the marshals with a load of rocks and stones. I'll thank him for that later on. But Almanza, your P1 rider at the moment, down at turn 9. Thankfully crashed before the yellow flags. After the yellow flags had gone in for Yamanaka's accident, and unlike Fernandez, that looks like slow speed, and he's able to get that bike back up and okay. The other one works his way back into the box, so not good timing there for David Almanza to have a crash, if ever there is good timing, but at least he's in P1 and at the moment looking pretty safe and comfortable to move on through. 55.6 at the moment, 8/10 quicker than his teammate, who has just done 4 laps and has a very, very concerned and pensive look on his face as he gets everything sorted out and hopefully gets back out on track. Yamanaka has got the bike restarted and he's coming back into pit lane now. So all of our crashers in Moto3 going to have to come through pit lane. Not ideal going into the last quarter of an hour.
Does look in some discomfort there, doesn't he, on his left arm / wrist. He's not holding the handlebar, which isn't a good sign at this moment in time. As I say, hopefully it's just a bit of a heavy whacking. In a couple of minutes it will be okay, but not good that Yamanaka wasn't really aiming to hold onto the handlebar. Is it wrist as it is?
It's
fingers potentially, yeah. I mean, he's going to take his glove off and about to see, but hopefully for one of the home heroes here this weekend, it looks like his potential fingers easy, obviously done when you crash, to get some fingers caught underneath the motorcycle or in the gravel, for example, as well. So fingers crossed for Yamanaka that isn't going to trouble him for the rest of the session and of course for the rest of the weekend as well. But he looks in a little bit of discomfort.
Let's see if we can listen in. No, never mind. Too late. Not the first time I've been a bit late arriving there to a situation, but never mind. Jose Antonio Rueda, here is on screen. He's in P6 at the moment. 56.6. I don't think he's going to be quite good enough to work his way up into Q2 directly. Not by the time they all go a bit hell for leather right at the end of this, but Rueda's getting his laps in, and so often he works so well on his own, getting those laps churned out in clear air on a Friday afternoon, and he always comes good in the Grand Prix, even if he does suffer a tricky qualifying, or he's coming from back down the field after an opening lap or two that haven't gone his way. So Jose Antonio Rueda working very, very well indeed, as is this rider here. Tyre for Rossato up inside the top four. Another strong Friday following on from Lozano's successes. He'll just hope to convert it on Sunday.
Yeah, caught up with Rossato after the race, and Lozano is disappointed with his result, I should say. I asked him, of course, up next is your home Grand Prix. Is it a circuit you like? And he was, I don't necessarily dislike it, but it's not one of the ones where I enjoy most. Doesn't necessarily suit his style as much as others, as we get a nice slow-mo of the Japanese rider, I believe, coming out of Victory Corner, turn 14, hopefully for Rossato and the Japanese fans' sake, that he'll be in that victory fight come turn 14 later on into the weekend on Sunday morning. Almanza now back into the pits, so good news in terms of both riders back in the box for Leopard Honda, but a bit more work to do than they would have anticipated and would have liked heading into the final 14 minutes.
Yeah, last year we had a 55.5, which was our benchmark time after practice combined, of course, and top 14 is 56.5, so 56.5 at the moment is your cut-off. At the moment today it's a 57.1, so there's a little bit of time still to be found. Of course, conditions vary from year to year, but you want to really definitely be in the low 56s, I think, to guarantee yourself a slot moving on through. Ryusei Yamanaka is now getting his helmet off, and his gloves are already off. And I just wonder if he's going to have that checked up on her. This is not a good bit of news for Ryusei Yamanaka and the fans track side here, because with 13 minutes to go, he is in a far from ideal position. David Munoz wheeling down the front straight with 13 minutes to go. That's about right. And yeah, Yamanaka going to the medical centre. We thought that might be the case, and indeed it is. But David Munoz works his way through the opening couple of sectors. Most of the riders are in pit lane. Munoz, Rueda and Bertelli are not, and then if there's anyone else, they are the only three that are out on track, as the team, regardless, prep Ryusei Yamanaka's machine to go back out if Ryusei himself is able to.
Yeah, fingers crossed that he is able to on that number 6. He didn't look in like too much pain, but obviously needs to go and have a quick check-up. Maybe it's a cut or something not small, of course, but something that's manageable at least for the remaining 10 or so minutes. As Rueda continues on his way, as you say, Kiko, so often we've seen this from Rueda, trying to lap alone as much as possible, at least not following anyone. Anyway, he normally has a little bit of company behind him, which is understandable. Following the championship leader is one of the best things you can do, of course, when you're trying to learn a few things and try and gain some time. But yeah, Rueda is P6 at the moment in time, not stuck a soft tyre in yet, or a fresh set of tyres, let's say. He's looking good, which is ominous for carers.
There's the famous number 93, Abi Aditama. Someone please paint that crash helmet. White crash helmet, I can't believe it. Surely the fans have got some stickers or something to put on that. Please, Abi Aditama, get some colour on it, please, whatever you do. And definitely make it look a little bit more lively. We are currently, 11 minutes or so away from the end of this session, and there's a lot going to happen between now and then, including the entirety of this Moto3 field heading out on track, because they are all now in the pit lane. We're looking at Dennis Foggia, currently out of Q2 as things stand. He is down in 18th place, and some considerable margin away from David Almanza's top time. So yeah, work to do down there for Dennis Foggia, 1.7 seconds away at the moment. I've got to say, Almanza and Munoz, they're only split by a couple of tenths of a second, but there's no one else even within half a second of the number 22 who leads this. So Almanza's lap time and Munoz, tell you what, that's why you get a banker in, because if you do have a fall, or if you do have a crash late on, or a technical late on, or your lap gets cancelled late on, I'm fairly sure 55.6 is more than good enough to move yourself through.
Yeah, this morning's fastest time was a 55.947. Top two, of course, quicker than that so far, but everyone else not even flirting really with the 155s as things stand. But I imagine that is going to change in the next 10 minutes as Alvaro Carpe just sights himself up to head out. Carpe P21 at this moment in time needs a lap time. Dennis Foggia, we just saw on screen as well. He needs a lap time. Honestly, not on a good run of results at the moment. One top 10 in his last 6 races. He was a podium finisher here last time he was on a Moto3 machine at Motegi P2 in 2022. We seem to say that quite a lot, don't we? Of course, Dennis Foggia, a title contender for 2 or 3 years in his Moto3 prime, was just found to go in a little bit tougher than anticipated in 2025. Quiles is a name that's just on the fringes of missing out on the top 14. Ralston and Ogden there trying to promote themselves into that top 14.
Yeah, I've got to say, Jacob Wilson front row last time out on Mazzani. He'll be looking to try and squeeze his way in to Q2 directly if he can here. He's right on the cusp, and the difference in time, less than 1/10 of a second between the number 12 and the number 82 up ahead of him. Good to see that Adrian Fernandez's machine is getting wheeled back out, and a little bit of I don't know about frustration or if it was just general Spanish order giving out there down in the box, but nevertheless Adrian Fernandez is getting geared up to go again. Fernandez at least is safe at the moment there in 5th, but I reckon there's still a lot of time left in this racetrack just yet. I think they're gearing up for David Almanza as well, so both of our Leopard Racing Hondas that crashed are now going out together. And I know Adrian Fernandez isn't a big fan of working with his teammate. Almanza much preferring to work with a reference rider. Looks like they're going out together to at least try and book their slot into Q2. 8 minutes then on the clock, and the charge of the Moto3 brigade heads down pit lane, and this is really where push starts to come to shove, and we'll have to wait and see whether or not we have any big surprises. I'll tell you another rider to keep an eye on, Alvaro Carpe, Marco Morelli, 19th and 21st down there. Who else we got? Ricardo Rossi, who's been in Q2 a few times this year, down in 24th place. Boucher Moody having a real nightmare Friday so far. This is obviously an all-new track to him. He's down in 25th place, but they all continue rolling down with Kelso leading that one ahead of Beck Wheeler. Then it's Matteo Bertelli, Foggia, Eddie O'Shea, and the 2 658 Quadricorsa machines of Nepa and Lunetta. So there's like 2 gangs of riders here. Interesting that Angel Piqueras is electing to do it all on his own. We've seen that a fair few times this year as well.
Here we have. I was going to mention Quiles is going to catch those riders just coming out of pit lane. He might have a bit of traffic to negotiate. Hopefully they all stay out of his way or get the power down and stay ahead of him to not disturb him. Obviously through the first split he's been all okay. Here he is on the 28. He's going to be the first rider to set that sort of representative time on fresh tyres. He's going to be the marker, 2/10 under through the second split. Furasato keeps out of the Spaniard's way, and on he goes. Is he going to find time in this third split? This is turn 9 where we've seen Yamanaka and Almanza crash in this session. That's safely negotiated. Now it's all about getting turn 10 nailed and get it out of there and blast it downhill through split 3.
Tell you what though, Quiles is pushed on here. He had a little bit of a front moment at turn 9 last time around. Good to see Ryusuke Yamanaka back out. So Yamanaka's going to have to bite the screen and grit his teeth to get his head around this one and try and confirm his slot into Q2. But we track Max Quiles. This is down into that real difficult downhill 90-degree right-handed, so easy to make a mistake and run wide, and Max Quiles has, and that lap has gone away from him, and he's really in the way of Marco Morelli here. Morelli, I don't think he's on a lap time, but probably could have done with clearing the number 28 just there, but Quiles, so that lap's gone. And now the pressure starts to mount. Less than 6 minutes to go on the clock. How many times have we said it in 2025 that you could really do without making a mess of your fast lap? Despite that error, Quiles has somehow worked his way up into 5th place here. So that might be all right, but it just shows how much time he's still out there on the track.
Yeah, the gaps are pretty big. Morelli wasn't on a fast lap time. I think Quiles was actually shaking his head. I think he just got slightly disturbed by Morelli into the hard braking zone down the hill at turn 11. Of course, teammates next year, but certainly not teammates this year. Quiles, though, back up on his way. He's set a red first split, just under 1/10 of a second quicker than the top time. Ralston as well has got a red crash helmet. Almanza, Adrian Fernandez, Valentin Peroni, plenty of orange crash helmets as well, which means personal best times. We pick up Fernandez, so it all seems well on that repaired Leopard Honda, which is good news for Fernandez. Got that out quicker than I expected anyway, so good job done inside the Leopard Honda box, and Fernandez is clearly confident because he's well on course here to promote himself back into that top 3, potentially going to P1.
Yeah, very good stuff indeed from the Leopard Racing team. You'd expect nothing less. Fernandez at the moment on course for an improved lap time. Valentin Peroni on course for a session best lap time. He's in 3rd place. At the moment, he's somewhere in that 3rd sector. Fernandez is up through that 3rd sector, coming down into the braking zone. This is where Quiles went wide when we last checked up on him. No such dramas for Adrian Fernandez. Runs it right out to the edge of the curve, back across under the tunnel and through the pink at turn 12. Then it's 13 and 14. This is where Fernandez fell last time around in his previous stint. No such dramas this time. He was well off the curb that time. So through, down in towards the starts and finish line. Fernandez goes 2nd. We had brief yellow flags out. Oh, not again. David Almanza has gone down again. And that is, where is that? I can't.
Turn 11.
Is it turn 11? Yeah. That tricky downhill, right, turn 9, apparently on our timing screen. That wouldn't be a first incorrect graphic. The turn 9 is now gone. When it come back with turn 11, right on cue. If you wouldn't mind, the graphics department is just down the road for you, mate. Unfortunate stuff there from David Almanza, who's gone down for a 2nd time. So Leopard is going to be thrilled about that. He's lost that early. Front end's gone, no saving that. Almanza is in the dust. But he will be able to remount, and thankfully, like I was saying earlier, he's got that one banked.
Still top of the timesheet, so I think in terms of the top 14, which is obviously the target, no such worries. I think that could be session over with him taking his gloves off, sitting inside the box. The team have probably said, top of the timesheets, 2 crashes, let's just park it. You're pretty much safe and sound inside that top 14. Rueda and Munoz then about to cross the line, and the 64 shadowing the 99, the championship leader. Munoz surely going to P1. Yes, he does, by 0.3 of a second and a little bit more. Top job from Munoz, and Rueda up into P2. Yeah,
Rueda needed that time. He really couldn't have done with a yellow flag or anything that time around. He was outside the top 14, but he's there in 16th place. He moves up into P2. Replacing him in 16th place now is Max Quiles. Max Quiles has found himself right out of this one, so he can do without that. Yamanaka, that is a fantastic job from Ryusei Yamanaka, who's obviously in some kind of pain with his left fingers. He has got that job sorted up back into the top 5. We pick up Max Quiles, who is not on a fast lap here. Quiles, this is one of his weaknesses, has been qualifying, and he's going to come up on Alvaro Carpe through turn 12. No such problems this time. Half a second off. If he can hold it, we'll put him in, but it's not his personal best, so that suggests that maybe his last sector is also going to be a weak point. Let's see what he's got across the line. Quiles, anything? Oh, does enough. Moves up to 8th. He's pushed back down to 10th though. Furasato and Peroni come across the line. They put themselves into Q2 provisionally. We're looking at Angel Piqueras now, who is out of the top 10, but in the top 14 there in 11th place. You really don't want to be around Pini or Quiles. You've got to say your top 8 probably safe, but anywhere further down than that, you've got problems. Piqueras bouncing down towards turn 11. Does he get it stopped? Just about runs it out to the edge of the curb. Drops it back across and then takes turn 12. We pick it up with the drone now. You can see just how interesting this final sector is here at Motegi. Piqueras, he's half a second or so off. This should be able to put him up inside the top 10, and it does, to 7th place. So that pushes Max Quiles back another position. So Quiles could really do with a quick lap time here. Just over 60 seconds remaining in Moto3 practice at Motegi.
Yeah, Quiles has got around about 0.2 of a second to, well, in his pocket to play with, basically, until he's pushed out of that top 14. Batelli is now just outside of it. Carpe and Ralston, 2 riders we're probably expecting to be challenging for that top 14 at least. Peroni is on a quick lap time as well. We'll pick up Yamanaka. This is potentially going to go even quicker for Yamanaka. If he can hold this to the line, he'll be going P3 ahead of David Almanza. Where does he go? Japanese rider, he certainly does. Goes up into the top 3. That is a top job done from Yamanaka, who was in a lot of pain earlier on after that crash at turn 9, and to come back out and go into the top 3 on home turf. Top job.
We're looking at Valentin Peroni, who is just 0.3 off the top time as he comes through turn 11. Tell you what, Matteo Vitali is pushing on here. We really need to pick up the number 18 in a little while. We have just about 15 seconds remaining. This is Matteo Vitali's last flying lap, so he really needs this. He's half a second off through the third sector. Peroni comes to the line. Does he improve? He moves up into the top 5 in 5th place. He's now on his last flying lap, but it looks like he's going to be in no matter what happens. At the moment, the two at high risk, Lunetta and teammate Stefano Neppa, so there could be some 658 Squadra Corsa heartbreak about to happen if Matteo Vitali can get this all hooked up. He's got Foggia that will be punching a little bit of a hole in the air. Let's see what Matteo Vitali can do on his final flying lap and on his return to Moto3. Oh, goes up into P11, and that is a very solid job indeed. Lunetta also booking his place in 12th at best. Quiles has taken the flag 13th, ahead of teammate Foggia in 14th place. We're looking at Macaras, who is already up inside the top 8 and should improve again, but it looks like he's going to stay up inside those Q2 positions. He moves up to 4. Ogden, Carpe and Ralston yet to take the flag. Whether or not they're able to nudge Max Quiles out or not remains to be seen, but I reckon that is about it.
Ralston's on a decent lap time. He's going, well, just under 4/10 adrift through the second split, and if he can hold that or lose a couple of attempts, he's going to promote himself into the top 10, which will demote Foggia out of the top 14. So we need to focus in on Jacob Ralston at this moment in time. Anyone else improved next to this? And Carpe is also on a personal best. He's just under 6/10 over the time, but he's lost a lot in that split 3. Now dropped to a second. Quiles could well be just about safe and sound here with Carpe not on a personal best lap time. Ralston on the 12 is.
Yeah, we're following Quiles down towards turn 11. He's just ahead of Furusato, who's already in 9th place and through safely. Morelli is the one who is ahead of Quiles on track. Morelli is also yet to take the checkered flag. We pick him up through the final sector. This is the victory corner. I tell you what, Max Quiles, he might just about have had a win out of this, because I don't think he's going to get promoted out of that top 14. Let's see what we've got across the line. Ralston moves up to 16th, but it's not enough. Morelli also moves up, so does Rossi and Carraro. Quiles doesn't, but it doesn't matter in the end. There was no life left in it. Max Quiles can breathe a sigh of relief there. 13th and 14th for Foggia. Carpe is going to have to go through Q1 along with Scott Ogden and Jacob Ralston, who was on the front row last time out. So it's going to be a star-studded Q1 tomorrow coming up at 12:45 local time. But they all chase David Munoz on a 1:55.234. He wheelies to P1.
Certainly does a good session then for Munoz. Didn't really see too much of him, did we? We saw him set that table-topping time when he was shadowing Jose Antonio Rueda, and it's those two who sit P1 and P2 at the end of the session after what was a disappointing Sunday over at Misano for Munoz, which really has put him well out of title contention now. Just gives Rueda a little bit of a tap on the back, say, well, thank you or well done, one of the two. I don't think Rueda was particularly too impressed with that as he tried to do a practice start. Here they are then, slow-mo through turn 13, then chuck it onto the right-hand side, through victory corner at turn 14. This is where the fastest lap was set.
Most riders aren't impressed when David Munoz makes contact with the rider ahead from behind. I must admit that I don't think there was any malice intended there from the number 64, who finds himself up in top slots. I've got to say, Ryusuke Yamanaka, he crashed on his way to P3. Obviously had a little bit of an injury with his left hand, but third on Friday. Top Japanese rider, top job.
Yeah, really good job from Yamanaka. Looks in still a little bit of discomfort with his left hand, but obviously didn't worry him or disturb him too much on his machine, which is good news. When he walked away from the box with 10 minutes remaining, I think all of us were a little bit worried about the rest of the session. But thankfully, Yamanaka got inside that top group.
I've got to say, that was a bit of a very obvious graphic. He went back out and was declared fit. Yeah, we could see that one. Thanks for that. David Munoz, P1 for number 64, 1:55.234, sees him just under 2/10 clear of Jose Antonio Rueda, your championship leader in P2. Yamanaka, third, fourth ahead of just behind his teammate was Angel Vaqueros. David Almanza, 2 crashes but still safe in 5th place. Peroni, Fernandez, Kelso, Furusato, Pini, Vitelli, Lanetta, Quiles and Foggia all moving through to Q2. Big names not Ogden, Ralston, Nepa and Alvaro Carpe. Well, he's got some work to do, hasn't he, down there. RB Aditama, like this morning, down there in 26th place, but he'll go again tomorrow in free practice 2, getting underway at 8:40. But now it's time for me to leave. It's time for Lewis Sotheby to move in alongside Elliot York. That means Moto2 Practice. Enjoy.
Very good afternoon and welcome back to Motegi. Very good morning if you're waking up the other side of the world in Europe. Wondering what you've missed? Well, let's fill you in. Moto2 about to get their second session up and running. For an interesting morning across all 3 classes, to be frank. Moto3, of course, in the heat of World Championship battle, which could well be decided in the next couple of Grand Prix. MotoGP World Championship, well, they've got off and running with their first free practice 1 session. Well, the factory Ducati rider that could clinch the championship this weekend was not the fastest one. This morning in FP1, Pecco Bagnaia off to a flyer. As far as Moto2 is concerned, top spot going to Jake Dixon earlier on today. Here is your confirmation of that. Dixon from Tony Arbolino. It was a 1-2 for the Boscoscuros. Arbolino here off the back of arm pump surgery post Misano. Manu Gonzalez third ahead of David Alonso, 4th quickest. Championship contenders littered across our top 14, with Aaron Canet in 11th, just behind his teammate Barry Baltas, but ahead of Diogo Moreira. Baltas had a few adventures on his way to the top 10 earlier on today. Danny Holgado, 24th, after we saw him go down the road earlier on today. The in-form Aspar rookie, slightly bumpy start to his Japanese Grand Prix weekend. Well, super close across our top 20. It's often the case in Moto2. So up next on this Friday afternoon, which at the moment remains dry. Weather 2 forecasts suggested that we could get some rain heading in our direction this afternoon. It has yet to reach us. So I hope that remains the case. Hard pressed to find anyone in this paddock. I'm not just talking about riders who have their fans at Motegi. Even our own Jack Appleyard has a small pocket of fans. Small pockets of fans supporting a small man, but boy has he got his fans here.